Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to this week's Q&A. I think I have the audio version straightened out. They're all being hosted directly on the server and only linked in the Patreon page. So please let me know just one last time if that's okay with everybody. There was a few people that were definitely downloading it right through the page and said it was cool, but I just want to make sure I'm doing whatever all of you guys want. So I guess that's pretty much it, and let's just jump right into the Q&As. All right, let's go from the bottom up again. Kyle Gamblin asked, what do I think the chances are of a high-def Super Nintendo mod board, and not the Super NT, but actually a way to put HDMI into the original SNES? And I'm going to go with probably 0. The only way at the moment that people were able to figure out how to do anything like that is by building something into the Super Nintendo that's essentially an OSSC designed specifically for it. So at the end of the day, you'd end up spending almost as much as an OSSC to have the exact same functionality. So if you really just wanted an analog to digital converter, you might as well just get the OSSC and even get the dejitter mod if you want it compatible with all TVs. So I don't think anybody else is going to look into anything other than that, especially because there's the second Super Nintendo FPGA mod that the other person did. It's still unreleased, but now we have 2 completed FPGA SNESes. One of them is shipping and been tested by thousands of people and working great. So sorry, but I'm going to go with probably never a chance of that happening on the Super Nintendo. Mike W. asked about Woozle's Game Boy Advance HDMI kit and asked if there was a chance that it could be used with the Game Boy player without a GameCube. And it's a possibility because the insides of a Game Boy player hardware are very close to the insides of a Game Boy Advance. There's some of the same chips on there. But I do talk to Woozle on a Woogle. Geez, I'm really mumbly today. Sorry guys, it's a million degrees in here and maybe that's it. But I talk to Woozle on a regular basis and he's definitely progressing in the design of his original kit. And all I know for sure is the first kit that's going to be released is going to be what everybody has seen. And that's a Game Boy Advance, screen removed, HDMI kit put in its place, and that has power, HDMI, and a Super Nintendo port so that you could actually use a SNES controller right with that. As far as all those other things, putting into a Game Boy player, doing any other kind of cool thing with it, I think Woozle's really looking at all options. But at the moment, I would really just count on the one that I just described, and everything else is a maybe. Mike Zip had a couple of questions. First, what's needed to mount a BVM in a rack? Well, some of them used to come with kits. Some were definitely designed to be rack mounted. I had a 14-inch that had the controls on the sides, and it came with rails, and it came with even the handles so that you could slide it in and out. But even if yours didn't have any of that, you could try to find kits online. Just remember that the bigger the monitor, it gets exponentially heavier. So mounting a couple of 8 or 9 inches, no problem. Mounting one 14-inch, probably no problem. Mounting a 20-inch, even if you got the exact correct rail kit and used a really nice heavy-duty server rack, you'd still have to take the same precautions as if you would that you would if it was a full server rack. Don't put a UPS on the bottom to weigh it down. Don't put anything too high that's really heavy because you don't want it to tip over. But basically, you could just find kits for these things, and most of them will mount like that. BVMs. I don't think PVMs have rack kits, and if they do, it overall just wasn't as popular because of the use case of PVMs. Next is, what's a good solder station for modding that won't break the bank? Should $50 to $100 be good? I answered this on a couple of Q&As ago, so I'll link back to that if you want details. But in short, that is a perfect price range. You can get, for just over $50, a perfectly good soldering station that will do everything beginner to intermediates want to do. The more you spend, the more features and the better quality you get. The feature that I really want, and the next station I buy will have one, is quick release of the tips. Because I like to switch back and forth between different types of soldering tips. Some of the experts can use a chisel for everything. I need to use the small pointed ones for certain things. And that's not something you could do on the cheaper ones easily. You end up having to wait for it to cool all the way down or just burning yourself. But I'll link back to that other post so you could have links to the actual equipment that we talked about. And Maybe I'll ask the guys to talk about this on a roundtable episode too. What is the higher end equipment, and what are the uses of something like that? Because for me personally, it would just be the quick release tips. I don't think I would use any of the higher end features, but maybe I'm wrong. Next, would the RetroTink work with the CGA composite signal? I'm assuming you mean the RetroTink 2X, not their Raspberry Pi boxes. And I'm honestly not sure. I could try to test for you. So what do you think a CGA composite signal would be? Is there a specific console that would use that? Just post down below and I'll see if I could test it for you if I have it. And lastly, am I going to a video game con? The truth is, I want to go to every one of these things, but I can't afford to, both in time and in money. It does cost a lot, especially if you have to fly out and get a hotel. And every time I'm away, you know, just doing the videos and the news and some of the basic stuff takes up a full week's worth of work pretty much. So anything extra I have to do gets put on the back burner every time I do stuff like this. So I kind of made it like a personal rule that I'm not going to any of these cons unless I'm invited and have some event to do there. But I'm not being prissy about that. Like, it could be anything. Even if somebody says, hey, we're doing a panel, it's 11 o'clock on Saturday, will you come sit on the table with us, keep your mouth shut until there's a nerd question and only answer that? Like, hell yeah, no problem. I would love to do that. But unless there's a specific reason for me to go that could help with the channel or the website, and I'm invited to go, then I'm not going to be going. So I hope that didn't come out the wrong way. I'm not trying to be all spoiled and, you know, fly me around the world for this. I really have to budget my time as well as I possibly can. I still have, I don't know if you can see it, but I still have a pile of stuff that is requiring videos and all of the web pages that are very outdated, new sections that need to be done. And I'm really putting as much time a week as I can into this. And I just, if I have an excuse to go to one of these things that I feel could be a help to grow the channel, you know, mix audiences together, I would love to. But just going to hang out, I just, you know, I would need something else. So I hope that didn't come out the wrong way, and I hope I answered your questions. Fabio Michelin was asking where to post questions for the next Q&A. So I want to make sure that I clarify this, and I probably should every week, but whenever a video is posted, so this video that's happening right now, if you have questions for next week, post them in this video's comments on the Patreon page. The Patreon app is weird. The Patreon website is hard to follow. So it's kind of hard for me to go back, and if for example, you were to post on something from a month ago, I wouldn't get that notification. So if that's an issue, if I'm missing questions because there's a lot of people that have posted, let me know and I'll try to catch up. Maybe I'll do an extra Q&A to if there's enough questions for that. But I just think it's easiest for the flow, both for people watching and for me doing it, that if you have a question or even a follow-up from a previous week, anything you want me to talk about, talk down below in the most current video, so that way when I go to do the next video, I'll have it all right there. But please post feedback on that. If that's not cool for everybody, let me know and we'll definitely figure something else out. Zach Glantz was asking about versions of games on the PS2 that are outputted in 240p. And there's actually a thread on the Shmups forum where people have really dug deep and tried to figure out exactly which games are in 240p. And they're mostly, exactly as you've explained, mostly older games that are ported over. The one that I've always used for testing is Sega Age's Fantasy Zone. So, and I've been testing that on HD Loader. I cannot for the life of me get it to burn on a CD or a DVD and work, obviously in a chipped PlayStation. So maybe I have to find a new game for that, but that's definitely the thread I would watch if you're interested in that stuff. And if anybody has a working ISO of Sega Age's Fantasy Zone or any of those Sega Ages that have the multiple resolutions, 240p, 480i, 480p, please let me know because I really need one for testing. I could just buy the Japanese version, but I need one that I could use on everything. So. Yeah, sorry to answer your question with another question, Zach, but I'll link to the thread down below. Ercury had a couple of questions. First, can you connect the BNC outputs of an Extron crosspoint directly to a PVM, BVM, or consumer TV via SCART input without the need to attenuate the C-Sync signal? Because all crosspoints output TTL. So there's a few things in that one. First of all, I don't know that all crosspoints output TTL, but it's good to assume that they do. Without a doubt, it's good to assume that they do. As far as consumer TVs or any equipment at all with a SCART input, I would always assume that they needed the lower voltage, just 75 ohm C-Sync signal. Because don't forget, the SCART standard calls for composite video as sync. We as gaming nerds know that if you strip off the extra information from that signal, just provide sync, you'll have a much less chance of interference, jail bars, and all that stuff. But essentially, all SCART equipment is most likely looking for a 75 ohm, low voltage composite video signal. As for PVMs and BVMs, please double check with the service manuals, because they're all, even the specs are available everywhere. But every one of those that I've tested myself is safe to use with TTL voltage. I mean, some of the PVMs, one of the PVMs I had was listed at being able to accept up to 8 volts or something insane. So it should be safe, but just double check. This equipment's rare and expensive, and it's never going to hurt just to do some double checking. Second, you were talking about you installed Voltar's Sega RGB board in your SMS, the one that you got for me that had the Alex Arcade TV bypass in there, and that you're getting a picture that's darker than normal. So there's a few things in there. Since you already had a bypass that was working fine, and it didn't go the other way. If you had one that was now too light and not too dark, then it could have been the board or it could have been the cable. But because it's getting too dark, this is going to be a really hard one. I spoke to Zach about it. He is swamped, by the way, so he just doesn't have time to support the free products. And that's, we talked about this on the roundtable last night, so I don't mean to repeat myself or himself, but, he would like to help everybody, but he's got to support the paid products, and the free stuff, we should all just as a community kind of help out each other. But the only thing I could suggest is if you, I saw on Twitter that you had gotten the very first version that he posted with a small mistake, and it looked like you'd already corrected it with the resistor, but I would just order the newest versions of the board only. I know that sucks, you already spent the time to build the board, you already paid for the stuff, but I just, your install looked fine, but who knows, maybe, where did you get the components from? I've seen mislabeled components before from like eBay sellers, maybe the resistors were the wrong ones or a higher tolerance. So I would just build more because it's not going to cost you that much out of pocket, and give it a try. And if you need to test even more, I'm going to be doing a video soon about a scope that only costs $100 that will work with retro gaming signals. Everybody keep that a secret. This is Patreons only. By the time this goes live, the video will be out anyway. But if you want, private message me somewhere, Patreon, Twitter, wherever, and I'll send you a link to that. You could follow the basic same instructions. Wow, I'm sharp today, huh, guys? The same basic instructions as what Steve taught us with the Rigels. So maybe it's a good idea to start checking the stuff on a scope if you're going to start messing with it a little bit more. I know I feel more confident in things now that I could just test voltage straight up. Same with your crosspoint stuff. And lastly, any feedback so far on Renee's triple bypass board? The parts were in. It took a while for me to verify the BOM and get the parts that were out of stock in most places. I hope I got the right parts for it, but they're being, I think probably as I record this, they're being assembled by Jose, who is much, much better than I am. So I'm confident that he'll assemble it correctly, whereas roll the dice with me, because it's a lot of really small parts on there. And I hope to find out if they work by the end of the day or tomorrow. I mean, but Jose's got other work to do, so who knows? He might get pulled away from this, but if that, I guess the plan of attack is he's going to take one board and install it and test it into, I think, a Genesis 3 and go from there. And then if that works, he'll probably put another one in a Genesis 2, and then we'll kind of figure out how we want to tackle this in the future. But as soon as it's installed and working, I'll probably tweet about it, because that's going to be a big deal. And I think Jose is the first person on the planet to assemble this latest revision and test it. I don't think Renee's even ordered it yet. So I'm equally as excited as everybody else for this. And, so is a lot of people that have been waiting to get their consoles modded with this. So stay tuned. We'll get to this stuff as soon as we possibly can. Next, Mr. Pete 1985 asked, any idea where I can get a new jewel case for my PS1 copy of Resident Evil 2 DualShock version? It's one of the 2-disc games that comes in the standard jewel case, and he found some on Amazon, but reviews are mixed. I hope Justin, aka the Goodwill Hunter, is watching this, because he would know the answer to that. If not, hit him up on Twitter or Instagram or any of the places. I don't know. That is a good question, and I generally default to Justin for all my collector-related questions. So sorry, Justin, I'm putting you on the spot here. But I would check with him, and if I hear of anything, I'll post in direct reply to your comment. Pork Chop Express 85, now I'm hungry, asked, how do you actually get the boards made for projects that are on GitHub, such as the triple bypass board or maybe Voltar's boards? And if it's something in GitHub, you really have to kind of hunt through it. And this is one of the many reasons why Zach doesn't want to put anything on GitHub, because it's not friendly. But you, for Renee's, would go into Gerber's. I believe I just took this triple bypass 03.zip file and downloaded it. I think the individual files are here. But basically, download that stuff and then go to OSH Park. And I actually just made a video for Zach so that people can go, and it walks you through exactly how to get how to do the upload part to OSH Park, what options you want, and all that stuff. So check that out if you're interested. You know, at least the Zach's boards are all up on my site directly, so when you click on the link, you just get the zip file, and then the zip file you just dump onto OSH Park. But I'll put the links to everything down below, and hopefully that's a help for anybody that was looking to make their own boards like that. Phil Welker asked how to determine what gauge of wire should be used for any given mod, and what's the leeway thicker or thinner for it. And luckily with retro gaming stuff, it could be pretty thin wire, and I even used to use that single core Kynar wire that was very brittle. I stopped using it, and what I just ended up doing, it was really it was really Zach just verbally abusing me into doing this, but I switched to using stranded cable that's in ribbons. And the one that I linked to on my modding tools page, I'll put the direct link down below. You got to get a special, actually I think I have it right here. You have to buy a special stripper for it to make it easier, but you you put the cable in this side, and then you kind of push down, and it made it so much easier after I got used to it. I was so used to using individual cables and then only having one core to deal with, but the most common thing that would happen with Kynar is it would just break. Whereas if you have stranded ribbon wire, not only are each one stranded together so that if one or two of the things break, the rest of them are still holding it into place, but having the ribbon hold the wires next to each other in place as well also helped for tolerance, which is weird because when I first looked at it, to my eyes, it almost looked like it was putting more pressure. But once I took my time, relearned how to do this stuff, and then used the method that Zach taught me, overall it's much safer and much easier, and I've never had a problem with wire thickness or anything like that. So I'll link down below to the gauge that we use. You can go thinner if you absolutely need to. There have been a few times where Kynar was the way to go, just because the pins were way too small. But I don't think in most cases you would ever need to go bigger, and the only time you would is if it was power related. But even then, I mean, there's not many things other than just running 5 volts and ground to a board. There's not many other things that you would need to do that require a lot of power and thicker wire. So links down below to the ribbon cable. Pete from M-Monkey responded in how to pronounce M-Monkey. And he said, sorry, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Sometimes in my head it's a long-sounding M, like but without the H, which leads straight into monkey. So let me try that. Monkey. All right. Other times it's like a stutter stammer, monkey. Okay. But in all honesty, it doesn't bother me, and it's fun to hear people come up with different ones. Well, as long as I'm not offending you by mispronouncing it, that's all that matters to me, because I know I say it probably too often, but I don't like mispronouncing people's names. Sometimes I laugh, but I'm laughing at myself. I'm not laughing at the name, I'm laughing at my own stupid pronunciation. So as long as you're not offended, I'm still going to say M-Monkey because it's easier, and I have a hard enough time fumbling through these things without mumbling or mincing words. So thanks, Pete. John in BK was asking about Famicom expansion audio on the EverDrive N8. And I can't remember if this has changed over the years, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of confusing myself. But I think there was 3 initial problems. First of all, original Famicoms have everything you need for expansion audio built right in. So if you were to say use the EverDrive N8 Famicom version on an original Famicom, you're done. You don't need anything else. If you were to use a newer NES, like the front loader, and I think there might even be some mods needed for the AV Famicom, I don't think, and definitely for the top loader, but now you need to mod the inside of the console to integrate that channel. And if you're using the top loader or front loader NES, now you also have to mod whatever cartridge pinout converter you're using, so that way, otherwise it won't pass through from the cartridge onto the console itself. On top of that, I can't remember if there was an issue with the NES version of the N8. I think the old ones you had to add a mod to it, but maybe not the new ones. I bought mine on launch day, so it's been years since I had to worry about it. So if anybody could chime in on that part of it. So let's just assume that your Nintendo itself is completely modded for expansion audio and works with real games, and that's fine. And you have the EverDrive N8, the Nintendo cart, not the Famicom cart. If anybody could chime in and say, do we need a mod for that? Or the newer revisions fine? Does it have it pass through? And if you're using the Famicom version, I think there are a few designs out that have the board built in, or have the thing built onto the board, so that you could just pop that onto the converter and then put that converter in your NES. But either way, there's on the Crix forum, there's a few threads about that. So I think the only thing I'm still iffy about is the N8 Nintendo cart version, not Famicom cart. Do we still need a mod for that? So if somebody could chime in on that, that would be awesome. Sorry I didn't just know it. I wish I got to keep brushed up on these things, because unfortunately they do change sometimes. Chris Syme posted about printing the metal brackets through Shapeways. I already just talked about that in the weekly roundup, but I just wanted to give another shout out and say thank you for sharing. And I think it's really cool that metal is an option for some of this stuff. Sterling Ferentz responded to the conversation last week about the air vents in the design of the flip grip. Apparently, Jeremy Parrish did his account for the air vents and even conducted extensive heat testing, and it's discussed in their official materials. So I kind of assumed that's what they would have done, but it's glad to have confirmation. And so thanks, Sterling, for posting. And I'm really interested to see how that comes out. In fact, a video I should be posting in the next few days talks about that a little bit as well, because a friend of mine bought Donkey Kong Arcade, and he's really looking forward to playing it vertically like that through the flip grip. But thanks for posting. Lastly, Jordan Chaston asked, how does the JVC XEye compare to the better Model 1 high-definition graphics as far as audio and video output go? Well, I don't have much experience with the JVC XEye, but I believe it's based off of a later version of the boards, so I think it has the same lower quality audio that the bad Genesis 2 boards have. But I know that there's more than one version of the XEye, so I can't say for sure. I would just, as a rule of thumb, if you're going to want the best out of any of your Genesis consoles, you're going to have to expect to do some mods to it. So, if the triple bypass fits in there nicely, maybe that's something that would work well, because you could do that as a no-cut mod, so that you could put it back if you ever wanted to restore it to its original, its original state. But one thing to keep in mind is that Model 1 high-definition graphics Genesis consoles are pretty easy to find still, and still very inexpensive. So you might want to consider, if you're looking to mod to get the best quality, you might want to consider getting one of those, doing whatever mod you want to it, and then using that as your primary Genesis, and only pulling out the XEye when you want Sega CD or something like that. I mean, You know, I have friends that have classic cars that leave them in the garage and drive their main car every day and almost never touch the classic car. And I have other friends that have rebuilt muscle cars, and that is their main driver, because their opinion is, I spent all of this time building this up, why should I leave it in a garage? I want to be proud of it. And I understand both of those things. I understand wanting to use the cool and rare and awesome thing that you have, and I understand people that want to leave it on a shelf, dust it every few days, and just say, I get to own this awesome piece of Sega history. So I would just consider all that, choose whichever one you want to do, and just whatever you do, don't cut the XEye. Oh, that's it. That breaks my heart when I see people drilling holes in that thing and adding stuff to it. It's such an awesome and rare piece of equipment, but just my thoughts. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for participating, and any questions for next week, please post down below in this video. And once again, any comments or feedback on that, please let me know, because I'll do whatever everybody wants me to do. If there's a better way to do it, submitting a form, a Patreon-only page on my website, whatever. I just want to make this easier on all of us. So I think just posting in the latest video description is the best way. We'll see. But I know I missed some now and then. The last question that I did today came in as I was recording this, so it kind of slid in at the last moment. But as always, I just really want your feedback and want to do what's best for everybody. So thank you so much, awesome Patreons, for supporting me. None of these things could happen without you all. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.